In 1972, George McGovern of South Dakota was the Democratic Party's nominee for president. 12 years later, Walter Mondale would find himself in that same role. Both ran campaigns with strong visions for what they wanted America to be, and both of them suffered brutal defeats at the ballot box. When Walter Mondale first arrived in the United States Senate in late 1964, one of the first people he met was fellow Senator George McGovern of South Dakota.
He and I were very good friends.
Mondale says he and McGovern talked a lot and traded jokes during their time together. He watched as McGovern mounted a challenging presidential bid in 1972 against Edmund Muskie, Hubert Humphrey, and George Wallace.
I know what he was trying to do. He was very hard on the issue of ending the Vietnam War, making the issue about how bad the war was.
McGovern not only wanted to end Vietnam, he wanted to cut defense spending by more than a third. He also wanted to do more to focus on the plight of the poor. And while Mondale says McGovern's campaign looks good through the lens of history,
it's not the campaign I would have run.
Mondale tells me he believes McGovern made a mistake in how he executed the message of his campaign, perhaps too liberal at a time when the country was shifting to more conservative views.
I think he left behind a lot of people that would have helped him if he'd moderated a little bit. But he did what he wanted to do, and he got whopped just like I did.
Election day 1972, McGovern lost to Richard Nixon by nearly 18 million votes, winning only Massachusetts and the District of Columbia, and losing his home state of South Dakota. 4 years later, 1976, Mondale is elected vice president on the ticket with former Georgia Governor Jimmy Carter.
Number one, he was strong for civil rights. And for a Southerner to be for civil rights was a huge change.
Mondale says he and Carter were both small-town kids who clicked right away, with Mondale telling me this Southern Democrat had something special.
Carter was different, so that was one thing. I knew we could not win the presidency there unless we had somebody with a little more conservative slant.
4 years later, 1980, they are defeated by Republican Ronald Reagan and his running mate George Bush. Mondale can still remember what Election Day 1980 felt like.
I think I knew what was coming. It was kind of a depressing day. I thought we might get a break, but I doubted it.
They did not get that break they were hoping for. But Mondale, while out as vice president, was already thinking about 1984.
In other words, my dad and my mom taught each of us we could be anything we wanted to be. All we had to do was be honest and work for it.
In order to meet Reagan in the 1984 general election, Mondale would have to fight through fellow Democrats Gary Hart and Jesse Jackson, and for a brief time, George McGovern of South Dakota. Mondale won the party nomination, but knew he had a big hill to climb if he was going to dig into President Reagan's popularity.
Somehow we had to reshuffle the cards and go to the public with a different approach so we'd get more people with us.
That reshuffling shook the political world. Mondale selected as his running mate New York Congresswoman Geraldine Ferraro.
I proudly accept your nomination for Vice President of the United States.
This marked the first time in history that a woman was on a major party presidential ticket. Mondale wanted to send a message with his choice about how he viewed American society and American politics.
I thought this was the right choice. I think we had to open up the party, we had to open doors, we had to make it that the old Democratic Party wasn't going to work anymore. We had to freshen up and do something else.
Ferraro came highly recommended from then Speaker of the House Tip O'Neill. But Mondale tells me there were people in his own campaign who questioned his vice presidential choice.
No one's going to be popular everywhere, and she wasn't, but there are a few of them that thought I should go elsewhere.
Mondale stuck with Ferraro, and on Election Day 1984, like Election Day 1972, political history repeated itself, with Mondale Ferraro winning only one state, Mondale's home of Minnesota, and the District of Columbia.
I have no regret about the campaigns we ran. I thought they were the right issues, we made the right cases.
Sometime after that '84 election, Mondale ran into his friend George McGovern. Their political paths had paralleled so much through the years. Mondale asked his friend a question.
George, how long did it take you to get over your defeat in running for president? I had to run into. He said, I'll call you when I get over it. You never get over it. That's the answer.